Session 26 writing task is to write a letter requesting to prepare Miss Anderson for her surgery. She is diagnosed with colon cancer and is scheduled for a colostomy on 5th June 2008 at Holy Heart Hospital. Here, you are a registered nurse at Pullman Medical Center where Miss Paula Anderson is a patient in your care, and the letter is written to Miss Meredith Stevens, who is a charge nurse at Holy Heart Hospital, requesting to prepare Miss Anderson for her surgery. Let us look into the case note first. If we look into the case note in detail, we can see today's date, which will be the date of the letter, because it is specifically given in the case note and it is essential to know when the service should be provided. The name and date of birth are very important and should be mentioned in the reference of the letter. The important things to know are the patient's name, her current condition, what she must receive from the nurse, and for which diagnosis what surgery is scheduled. We can see the social and medical background, diet, and the nursing notes during the hospital stay are all irrelevant because you're writing this letter to a nurse who has to prepare the patient for her surgery. She doesn't have to know much about her history or background, and hence you need not mention all these things in this letter. However, the information provided under the objectives and plan are important because it says about the purpose of the letter, that is to minimize the risk of post-operative complication and the plan to achieve these objectives. You should keep in mind that all these points have to be mentioned in an organized manner so as to maintain the continuity of the letter. Now let us see how we can write a letter with the help of a sample letter written by a candidate from India. If we look at the address, it is properly written, but in the case of date, you can see a small error in it because when you write a date in expanded form, then you don't have to write date, but can simply write 02 February, 2018. This is enough because everyone can understand it's a date since you're writing it in an expanded form. Moving to reference, you don't have to write age to 64 years. Instead, you can simply say 64 years. So we can write RE, then place a colon and write Miss Paula Anderson, 64 years. The salutation is correct. Moving to the introduction paragraph, I am writing a letter to refer Miss Anderson, who has advised colostomy after diagnosis of colon cancer. So she needs to be prepared for surgery. There are multiple errors in this introduction paragraph. First of all, it says a letter, which means she is writing some other letter which is wrong. So instead you have to write, I am writing to refer Miss Anderson. And the word advised is wrong because the surgery is already scheduled. So you should replace it with the word scheduled. In the second sentence, there is a grammatical error. Instead of prepare, you should write prepared. So if you make the changes and reorganize this paragraph, looks like I am writing to request a surgery preparation for Miss Anderson for her colostomy, which is much impressive. Moving to the second paragraph, on 28 December 2017, Miss Anderson was referred for suspected colorectal cancer. Histology and CT report showed known metastatic cancer. Besides, she has history of pneumonia and arthritis of hands. Here this paragraph is totally out of order because it says about her history which is irrelevant. Since this patient is going in for the surgery and she has to be prepared for the surgery just in 3 days time, so the nurse doesn't want to know all this kind of unnecessary things. Moving to the third paragraph, pre-operatively, rectal washout would be done before bedtime for 3 days along purgatives if desired. This sentence is not framed in a proper grammatical order and it has to be altered like a rectal washout must be done before bedtime for the next 3 days and a purgative as per the reference, which is much better. The second and third sentence is meaningless and it should have been framed as according to diet plan, low residue light diet and fluids are allowed on 12th hour before the surgery and intake of food is restricted. Coming to the last sentence, we can again see the improper organization of sentence. This candidate has pulled out very different types of information and pulled together in one paragraph and made it a totally absurd one. The last paragraph says, Miss Anderson lives with her husband. She is overweight and has sedentary lifestyle. She takes alcohol 5 days a week. Here all this information are totally out of the box and we don't have to mention it because the main motto of this letter is to request a surgery preparation for a lady who is scheduled to undergo the surgery in 3 days time. This patient has a proper plan for this 3 days, which is explained in the case note under the sections objectives and plan, and none of this information are included in this letter and instead explain totally irrelevant things. Coming to the wind-up sentence, it would be appreciated if you contact for further information regarding her, which is not the correct way of closing a letter. Instead, you must write it as, it would be greatly appreciated if you could make the preparations for her colostomy and contact me if you have any queries about Miss Anderson. The sign of yours sincerely is wrong. Instead, you should write yours sincerely. Registered nurse is written correct. So that's all about the letter. Thank you.
New method for OET learning. How are you preparing? Online or offline? For speaking and writing, you can get tutor reviews. How will you be able to manage your reading and listening? How can you manage your self-practice easier than never before? Learn OET in Merlin's way. Most successful OET learning method from world's best online trainer. Chat now. mentormerlinexam.com